welcome everybody to this installment of Junior Achievement New Jersey's Women's Future Leadership Series virtual. We're so glad that all of you have joined us today, whether you're joining us live or whether you're watching us later. Thank you so much. We really appreciate your participation. We are so excited to have 5 fabulous women joining us today for our panel. We have Michelle Bajwa, founder of Domain. We have Claudia Healy. I just lost the screen. Hold on a second. We have Claudia Healy from Verizon. We have Sharon Manker from American Water. We have Melissa Orson from South Jersey Industries. And we have Hans Schnell from Lockheed Martin. We thank you all for joining us today. And we'd also like to thank our program sponsors. Without you, we would not be able to have this event possible. So we would like to begin our session just again with welcoming remarks from everybody. And we also want to thank any of our students who are joining us. Students, we really appreciate it. If you're able to join us live, we're really grateful for that. We will save a little bit of time at the end of the session for questions. So if you have any questions for our panelists, please feel free to ask them at the end. Also, we do have a chat room. So if you'd like to post a question in the chat room, students, you're welcome to do that. If you need to see the chat room, just move your cursor down to the bottom of your screen. You'll see a series of buttons. And the one, I believe, second to the right is the chat box. So you can just click that and you will be able to view the chat box. All right. We will go ahead and begin our introductions. So if my colleague Ashley would kindly show people on the screen, we would appreciate it. And we're just going to begin with some introductions. So why don't we start with Claudia? We'll start with you. And we'll go down the line, Claudia, Michelle, Sharon, Melissa, and Han. We'll go in that order for our introductions. So Claudia, if you don't mind, I'll put you on the spot first. If you wouldn't mind just giving us a brief introduction, name, title, company, and a brief job description.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I'm Claudia Healy, and I work at Verizon Communications, and I have responsibility for leading the HR transformation function for our business. Verizon is a large global telecommunications and technology company. We operate worldwide. And so there's, as you can imagine, lots always going on with our people. So the HR transformation office is a lot of fun. Thanks.
Thank you, Claudia. Now we'll move to Michelle.
I'm Michelle Bajwa. I own an IT company that specializes in outsourced help desk services for small to medium-sized businesses in our tri-state area. I started our company 22 years ago when I was a junior at Rutgers University. My partner at that time was Rashad Bajwa, and 5 years after we started our company, we actually got married and now have 3 children. So in addition to being a founder of our IT startup, we also own 2 other companies, one called Apprentice IT, which is an apprenticeship program that partners with local community colleges. Our engineers will mentor students so that they can obtain the soft skills and the technical skills to enter the workforce right after graduation. And then there's also bizratings.com, which is an online survey tool and a reputation management platform. That's our latest startup. So I've often been referred to as an entrepreneur in the IT space. I kind of like the sound of that, so I'm going to roll with that. So thank you for having me today.
Excellent. Thank you so much for joining us. And now, Sharon, would you mind introducing yourself, please?
Hi, I'm Sharon Manker. I am the Supplier Diversity Coordinator for the National Supplier Diversity Program for American Water. Usually everyone doesn't know what American Water is. I know when I started, I really didn't. We are not a bottled water company. Just FYI, put that out there. American Water is actually the nation's largest public utility company. So just like your water company at your home, we buy those municipalities and we own and manage water and wastewater all over the US. For our regulated side of business, I support 16 states. For the market-based side of the business, we are in every state. So that depends on the types of services that we support in that particular state. I specifically am the champion, advocate, cheerleader for women-owned, veteran-owned, minority-owned, LGBTQ-owned companies. So I actively find them, mentor them, and help position them to get contracts with American Water and our utility partners. So that is a large part of my job, which is great because I get to be a cheerleader and I get to have fun and I get to help a lot of small businesses that would not have had the opportunity to work with a large corporation. So love what I do.
Excellent. Well, we love that you're here. Thank you so much. Next, Melissa, would you like to please?
Hi, everybody. I'm going to try and have as much enthusiasm, so you're a hard act to follow. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it, and I'm very happy to be here. My name is Melissa Orson. I currently serve as Senior Vice President and General Counsel of South Jersey Industries. We are likewise a utility company, an infrastructure company, if you will. I have been here for about 2.5 years now, and I'm really enjoying seeing this side of the business, and it's a lot of fun. And I have a daughter entering high school, so this makes being on this panel even more special to me.
Thank you so much. We're so glad that you're here. And finally, Han, would you like to introduce yourself, please? Han, I think you might be muted.
How about that? There we go. Hi, my name is Han Schnell, and I am a system engineer with Lockheed Martin right here in Morristown, New Jersey. I am, and what I work on is currently a program for the Japanese Navy. And so I get to travel to Japan, though not right now with the pandemic, but I have traveled extensively to Japan to work with a customer and train them and to work with that industry with millions of dollars of product development that I work on with my team. Another part of my role is that I'm also the lead for my business area for 22 chapters of Women's Impact Network, which is a resource group for our employees where we help empower women across our corporation. So I'm happy to be able to have that side of my work as well. So yay, I can be a cheerleader too.
Excellent. Well, we're all so grateful for everyone's enthusiasm today. We're going to go right into our questions, and we're looking forward to some great answers. And as you know, we're all faced with some really crazy challenges right now from this pandemic. And you know, we all know that kind of rising the challenges, overcoming challenges is a really secret to success. So we're going to ask some of our panelists today. Life throws unexpected challenges. It happens. Please tell us about your greatest challenge or your greatest setback and how you overcame it. So we'll start with Michelle. We'll ask you this question first, Michelle. Tell us about a challenge or something that you had to overcome, how you overcame it.
Well, actually, so you would think that starting a company when you're 19 years old would be the greatest challenge, but it actually wasn't. My greatest challenge was actually juggling the responsibilities of raising a family and also leading my own organization. I felt an enormous amount of pressure to be responsible and to nurture my own children, but also the needs of my staff and my company. So I reflected on that quite a bit, and I think that struggle comes up quite often, especially now since we're all home with our kids, and it's just a constant, okay, so kids are doing online learning, and then I have, as some of us have been on 7 calls a day, so you can't really get up from your desk to help make lunch. The way that I constantly try to balance that is just by remaining present. I tend to think in the future a lot, and I think, okay, well, I have this coming up and that coming up, so let me prepare for that now. And what happens is that I neglect what's right under my nose. So I'm constantly practicing patience and just trying to live in the moment and try my best to perform the best in that moment. And it actually takes away a lot of the anxiety and just sort of that wearing a million hats problem that females often have. So yeah, that's what I would say is the biggest challenge.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I know the challenge that many of us share for sure. Sharon, we'll throw that question to you. Can you tell us about a challenge that you had to overcome?
So I've been in supply chain for 20 years. I started off in healthcare supply chain, and now I've worked my way up to utility supply chain. And for me, coming from a short little kid from West Philly, you know, I had to overcome a lot of stereotypes. And a lot of what my job pertains to now has to deal with trying to get people to overcome their either conscious or unconscious biases towards women, people of color, LGBTQ. And so my life experience being in corporate America, where I used to walk into meetings and I am the only person of color or the only woman, and it was, okay, how do I get them on to even listen to what I'm trying to say? And so that was a challenge I had to overcome. So I actually changed my major when I was at Drexel from business to communications, business, and technology, because I wanted to be able to communicate with everyone better so that I came across better. I wanted to be able to, I'm also a Toastmaster, so okay. So that's why you see all this energy. So I compete and teach public speaking. And so that experience helped me to be able to do what I do now. I travel into very rural places like Iowa and Indiana, Kentucky, and I host events where I get local suppliers to connect with each other that they would not have otherwise been in the room together, because they could have been down the street, but no one connected them so they can partner together and be able to make contracts. And so when I go into those situations, I usually say, I am the start of a joke. You know, a little girl, Black girl from West Philly walks into a Starbucks, they all turn around. This has happened to me. And then you have to go, oh, well, I'm here because I'm hosting a veteran-owned business fair. And they're like, oh, okay. And it's usually I'm the only one that looks like me in the room. And it's feeling comfortable to be me, feeling comfortable to be able to present, and feeling comfortable with yourself to be able to do that. So it was a huge challenge, and I'm glad in all my years now I've overcome that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I think we may have, I think Han might have dropped off by mistake. Han, do we still have you on the line? Okay, we'll come back to Han in a moment. But we'll move on to the next question in the meantime. And it's all about education. So I suspect that any of our students who are here believe in the worth of a good education. Can you talk about the role that education has played in your career? What aspect of your education have you found most helpful, or maybe you took a different path with your education? Let's talk a little bit about that. And Melissa, maybe we'll start with you. Melissa, can you share a little bit about your education path?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So I did my undergraduate at University of Delaware, a Fighting Blue Hen, and I always wanted to go to law school. I actually wanted to go into criminal law. I grew up with a father, my dad was a prosecutor, and I grew up listening to wiretaps in the car, and just from like a very young age, that intrigued me. So I always wanted to also go into public service. So I went right to law school, also in Delaware, and I loved it. So which led me to a job in the Attorney General's office. So my education plan was like from a very young age, and you know, a few years in, I got a little jaded from it and transitioned out for a number of years. But the education itself has been absolutely invaluable and provided me every opportunity. I just think the advanced knowledge and the ability to think like a lawyer, you don't have to practice law, just the ability to think and see both sides of a situation and be able to come to an answer, whatever that answer may be in a situation, has been very useful throughout my career.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Melissa. Claudia, what you? Tell us a little bit about how you found education to be important and a little bit about your education path.
Sure, great. Well, I went to school at Fairleigh Dickinson in Madison, New Jersey, and I started out as a business management major. And it was great. I was a student athlete, so school was a way for me to continue my athletics as well as to pursue my academics. So I did that. I was a business management major. It was really important to keep my GPA up, both for athletics, but also academics, because I was there on scholarship. So it was really important for me to maintain a 3.5. So I learned time management, keeping a job down, which was my athletics, softball and field hockey, and then keeping a 3.5 was really important. So you learn time management, you learn how to prioritize, and you also learn how to read and write in sort of in business speak. And you also learn the value of building networks. So for me, I had a bunch of different networks, and those networks have stayed with me. In fact, some of my college friends are even closer than some of my friends that I had growing up. At the end of my 4 years, at that time, I won't tell you how old I am, but at that time, the business environment wasn't that great. So, folks coming out of college now might be in a similar situation where there weren't tons and tons of jobs. So I was very fortunate to be offered the opportunity to have a graduate fellowship. So I actually went straight through 6 years of college and achieved my MBA. And when I started my MBA, I was looking at going, just pure business again. But I decided to specialize with a concentration in human resources. And I just found that I just had a knack for it. And I really was very interested. And I just really was hungry to go to those classes. And I was really curious about all of the subject matter in there. And I think I really found that it was the right thing for me. Also, by specializing and having a major, it was easier for me to find a directed sort of internship and other jobs that I could do. By the way, oftentimes for free. These were unpaid internships. And so I did that. And when I graduated with my MBA with concentration in human resources, I was actually offered a position from Chubb Insurance Group, who I had done a project for during my last semester. So it helped to give me the opportunity to have the experience and the exposure to business leaders who were going to then either be able to give me a letter of recommendation or who were able to actually be able to give me a job offer. So that was all really good. I really do think the value of education, though, was it just allowed you to expand your aperture to really be in classes with people who grew up in different places than you, who had different perspectives than you, different opinions than you. And a lot of what college was about was working together in teams to solve a problem. And you learned that you had to negotiate, you had to influence. Sometimes you had to pick up the slack for other people who maybe had other things going on. And you always had to, do your part, and you had to do it well, because your GPA really matters for your first job when you get out of college. It doesn't matter much after that, but for your first job, it really does. But all of those habits are really important. And as I was thinking about this question, I really also reflected, having really spent 6 years straight through, I've never stopped educating myself. Your education continues well beyond high school or college. If you think like, oh, I'm going to be done with this, this is awesome, put that diploma away, that's not true. I think all of us ladies on this panel would say the reason we're in the jobs that we're in is because we've continued to learn and grow, and your education just turns into a different kind of education. It turns into experiences or different exposure you have to different people, and you learn through others rather than learning through books, and you learn by doing and experiencing and trial and error as well. So the value of education, to me is just incredible. Like some on the panel, I have 2 kids in college and 2 in middle school, and so I preach to them all.
I think, Claudia, I think we may have lost you for a moment there. Are there panelists here?
We're here.
All right, excellent. So Claudia, I'm sorry, we'll get back to you because we definitely want you to finish that thought. The bandwidth was a little low, which happens sometimes when we're doing these events. Online, sometimes things like this happen. But we roll with the punches, right? So we'll just move on to our next question. We'll leave a little bit of time at the end for if any of our panelists want to share any additional thoughts that they have, or students, if you have any questions, we'll leave a little bit of time at the end too. So welcome to utilize the chat room if you'd like to post a question, and I can read that to our panelists at the end of the session. But we'll move on to our next question. And maybe we'll start with Michelle again. Thinking about all the students that are listening today and the students who are going to be listening this in the future, what would you tell your younger self? What kind of advice would you give your younger self if you could do that?
This was my favorite question because I talk to my daughter Ava, who's 14 years old, about it all the time. I would tell my younger self two things. Practice self-love. You can't look for your own reflection of love in the faces of others. Obviously, your parents mean a lot, right? And our opinions matter, but also you have to have that compass inside that will tell you you did right, you're doing great, and that inner voice that can tell you you can get into that room and you can make that pitch, you can ask the question. Don't worry so much about what you think other people are thinking about you, which is a very common thing, in adolescence and in high school, and frankly, in most of our lives forever. So, um, I always tell our kids and also the people that we mentor, just remember everyone has a narrative. Everyone went through a day to get to the same place, the same room as you're in. If they're having a reaction, it's not necessarily a reaction to what you said, but just something that, maybe something's bothering them from earlier in the day, and it's just coming out and being interpreted in such a way when it's being projected onto you. Another thing I would tell my younger self is master something that's different and new. Practice mastery. Practice maybe try something new, like try to run. Do some yoga. Those are the things that I do. Learn how to hike, things like that. If you can practice mastery in such a way that you are challenging yourself on a regular basis and pushing yourself to change and grow outside of these pigeonholes that teenagers often will put themselves in, I think that's something that they can really grow from and learn that, keep your eyes open to the world. You're not always going to be the one that's athletic or the one that's just really good at art or the one that's not good at art. Give yourself a chance to grow. And so that would be my advice.
Excellent, thank you. That is fantastic advice. We appreciate that. Melissa, would you like to kind of jump in on this question? What would you tell your younger self if you could?
Sure, and I agree with everything that Michelle just said. The only other piece that I would add is it's okay not to be perfect, right? I also have 3 children and a husband and a dog, and I focus, 100% also on my job. And it's okay sometimes if you're behind your computer, right, with 7 meetings in a day, the next day I make a conscious effort to spend extra time outside with them or individually extra attention. It's a balance. Like life's all about a balance. We're not going to be perfect, right? My kids would tell you that, not perfect in a heartbeat. And it takes a village. Like I'm very lucky, family and friends, and I try never to miss anything that's of any import, right? And it's prioritizing, balancing, time management, all of it, and not to beat yourself up. You're gonna trip and fall along the way, and that just adds character and makes you a better sense of yourself.
Absolutely, thank you. And before we move on to our final question, would any of our other panelists like to jump in on this question? If you'd like to give advice to your younger self, it is just a great question. If anyone else, before we move to the last question.
This is Sharon Manker. So I would say to relax more. That whole self-love piece and loving yourself more. It used to be an option when I was younger. I was working. Now it is my priority. I will tell my boss, I am taking off the rest of the day because I do not want to meet anymore. And I need to love on me and just chill and just read a book and just, I have a rescue dog, so I want to play with my pug. I don't want to deal. So take that time to realize it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. The sky's not falling. And take the time to make yourself a priority, because self-care is a priority and not an option.
Well said. Thank you so much. All right, we'll move on to our final question here. And let's see, Claudia, are you back with us? Were you able to join again?
Got completely kicked out. My apologies.
No, we totally understand, and we love that Christmas tree in the background. Just wanted to throw that out there. That's fantastic. So we'll start the last question with you. Looking back at your life and career, what skill or skills did you develop that enabled you to come this far and accomplish so much? What were those skills that really set you apart and helped you to succeed?
It's an excellent question. By the way, my advice to my younger self would be not to take yourself too seriously and just be you and do you. So this is my home office. Only my closest friends used to know that I had a Christmas tree up year round. Now I count you amongst my closest friends as well. What I would say in terms of skill is just being fearless in the face of fear. You really have to just take more chances. Every time when I was overwhelmed, thought I couldn't do something, I just said, I'm going to do it. I'm going to try it. And I obsessed about it. Like I think many of the panelists said there, this fear and the pressure you put on yourself. I would just, if somebody sees something in you, trust those folks who believe that you can do more and you can be more. And just, you're more resilient than you probably give yourself credit for. So try new things, start with how could I make this happen? If a job terrifies you, that's probably good. It means that you'll learn and stretch and grow. And where you learn and stretch and grow and where you are doing new things that are outside of your comfort zone, that's where you're really going to grow the most. A lot of us stay in our comfort zone for too long. And then, those jobs and those exciting opportunities can pass you by. And then the last thing that I would say is, I think the biggest success in my career was having an incredible partner. I've had all 4 of my children while I've been employed at Verizon. I've had them all, and I took my leave and came back. And you can only do that if you have a partner who will support you. And we both have jobs and careers, and I've taken steps back and he has. So I think the most important thing in your career is to surround yourself with that village that was talked about earlier, because all of us should just know that, none of us really could or should or have to do it all alone.
Excellent advice. Thank you.
Can I add something else to that?
Yes, please, go right ahead.
I think you just hit on, Claudia, a very important point that I could not have survived the jobs that I've held if, my husband wasn't 100% there with me, because his career also is so time intensive. But having that partnership, and if you know what you want as a high school student, I have now 2 in high school, that you have to surround yourself with people who are going to trust you for you, like you do, and support you. And that is so important as young adults move on and you're meeting people in your life.
Well said. Thank you so much. I think we might have Han back on the line. Han, are you?
Yes. Hi. I had to try 3 different devices finally on my laptop.
There you are. Oh, excellent. It was good to have you back. We missed you. We missed you. So we're going to, if you don't mind, I'm going to put you on the spot, but as a JA board member, I know that you're good at that. And we're going to go back to the first question that I don't think you had a chance to answer. So we're going to backtrack a little bit back to when we were talking about challenges. So would you mind, again, I hate to put you on the spot, but we know you can do this. Any challenges that you had to overcome? What did you learn from it? Any setbacks that you had to overcome? Can you share a little bit about that with us?
Sure. Back in 2013, as you know, I work for Lockheed Martin. I've been there for a very long time. And at the time, I was the senior manager of a group of about 150 engineers. And we were going through a very terrible downturn. Within our industry, we were having rounds of layoffs. And so that was very difficult for me, having, to really downsize my team, deciding who to retain and who to let go, and including, my management staff. And we had just gone through 3 rounds of this, and my manager came to me and said, your group is now of the size that is really could be combined with another group. So I'm like, oh boy, what's that for me? So a challenge for me, he said, well, of all my leaders, you are the most technical. So I would like you to go back into the engineering field and and go back after, more than 10 years out in leadership, to go back into the industry and go back into the engineering world. So that was kind of scary for me because I had not done pure engineering work for, more than 10 years. And to say, okay, let me pick back, that part of my brain and turn that back on was difficult, but it ended up being a really good challenge for me to go, okay, I'm an engineer, I solve problems, so let me just go at it. And it gave me an opportunity to go to Orlando because they were short of engineering staff. And I got to go there for 6 months and work with a brand new team, a whole new different customer. I worked in cockpits, which I wouldn't have had a chance to do here. We built simulators in Orlando for fighter pilots. So wow, so that was very cool. So if I hadn't taken that risk, I would have not had that opportunity to do that additional work. So that was very enjoyable for me.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Han. We really appreciate that. And now we'll jump back to our last question. And again, we'll open it up to questions from the students. You may either ask them live here, or you can post them in the chat room. Sharon, we'll jump back to you. Put you on the spot, Sharon, and we'll go back to our last question. Looking back on your life and career, what kind of skills did you develop that enabled you to come this far and accomplish so much?
Oh, there's several, but I'm going to say the one that I want any young girl to never forget is don't be afraid to fail. I was with one company and I literally interviewed 6 times, didn't get it. You're too young. You need more experience. You need this, you need that. And each blow was like, oh, what do they want now? Like, okay, all right, first, you still need to finish your bachelor's. Oh, okay, well, then you need to do your master's. Oh, okay, well, then you need to do this certification. Oh, okay. And don't give up, right? Because the more you persevere and you show that you are adaptable and that you are flexible and teachable, the better off you are. So the more you are able to learn from whatever didn't get you to that next point, whatever you felt was a failure, whatever you think you can learn from that situation, take it and build on it and just keep going.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And Han, we'll throw it back to you. Any skills that you developed to be able to accomplish so much in your career at Lockheed Martin?
Sure. I'm going to tag on to that adaptability. I think it's very important to understand, change is going to happen and you have to be able to adapt. Take, what you already know and learned and apply it to this new situation. Look at what skills you already have that you can apply to this role and look at the skills you don't have and figure out a plan to get those skills. Either it's with finding a mentor or going to read a book or getting certification or, just taking the information to your manager, your leader and say, hey, these are the skills that I would help me to be better at my job. How can I get these skills? What can we do to set up a plan so that I can learn and grow and be a better participant in this job? So I think that's very important and never stop learning. I think that is something that even, I'm almost 30 years into Lockheed Martin and I am still learning every day. And I think that's wonderful to be able to do that because technology changes all the time. You have to keep up with it. You have to keep up with the changes that are out there and adapt.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Han. And we have a fantastic question from one of our students in the chat room. And thank you so much to Sierra for posting this really thought-provoking question that I think we can all relate to. I think I've certainly had experience in this too, not with JA, but with my previous employer. Have you ever, and we'll throw this out to any of our panelists who would like to jump in and answer first. I'm going to see a lot of head shaking, I think, when I ask this. Have you ever had an experience where being female has been detrimental to career development or progression?
I'll jump on that one because we did start our company when I was very young. As I mentioned, we were 19 when we first started visiting clients and doing pitches for network projects. There was a lot of just overt misogyny. It was, oh, you're the owner. Oh, you're not the secretary, or why don't you get us a coffee? I mean, all the bad stuff that you would see on those old movies from the 90s. I feel like that kind of happened to me. I it's water off a duck's back. I just couldn't allow them to win. I mean, I would walk into boardrooms where everyone was male, everyone was of silver haired, and they would see me as a very young Asian American female, and then a myriad of preconceived notions would fly through their minds. The first one was, we can't take her seriously, or she's just really good at math. A lot of these things were said directly to my face. So a lot of the time I would really need to just stay focused on the goal and why I'm there, and not allow their comments to get to me, because what they wanted was a reaction. So to piggyback on that concept of failure, everyone fails. Everyone does. It was during this time that I realized that it's the time that I proved my value was in how I recovered. And so every single time I got knocked down, I would just try to recover gracefully over and over again, until this point where I know that sometimes people will have preconceived notions when we as females walk into the room, especially in positions of leadership. But now I can't let it bother me. It's just one of those things you get used to.
Yeah, I'd like to join
Absolutely.
in.
Thank you. Please jump in.
I definitely
I'm
think
sorry.
that it's very important for women to make it a teachable moment. I had an experience early on in my career where we had leaders that said, hey, how come, why should we invest in women? And because you're just going to have babies and leave. And we're all looking at him like, wait, we have the same education as you. We have master's degree just as you do. Why do you think that we're going to give that up once we have kids? You have kids, but you haven't given up your careers. So it was kind of an aha moment for that leader to say, oh, you're right. You are just as educated as I am. So why am I projecting this onto you when it's not fair? And I think if you make it a teachable moment, it helps to build that bridge.
Excellent. Thank you. I think, Melissa, did you have something to say?
Yeah, I was going to just add that I have a similar situation. I unapologetically have to have a work-life balance. And to me, sometimes that means working until midnight, and that's totally okay. I have other obligations, and I've seen those shift in the workplace from when I first started entering meetings at very high levels. And so what now I see is unapologetically not having meetings on Halloween in the afternoon, and that's okay. And you know what? A lot of men have finally said, oh, thank God. You mean I can go trick-or-treating with my kids too? And we don't have to have a 4:00 meeting? And I think it's not letting it impact you. Being a leader, right? Don't take it personally. Don't pout. Don't use your words in an effective way, and communicate how we can prioritize better and work together, because we are different, but we do have the same education, the same ability, and it's just how you use it, and not let them see that it upsets you or hurts you, but just show them with your intelligence and get the job done.
Excellent. Thank you. Either of our other panelists want to jump at that question? Otherwise, we do have another question posted in the chat.
I just had one comment on that. I love how you said unapologetically be yourself, because I actually that's my handle on social media, is unapologetically Sharon, because so many people were naysayers, right? And you won't, and this and the other. And I said, yes, I will. And so I was able to. I bought my first house at 24 because I worked hard to do that. And me, my husband, and my kids, we decided we want to see how it is in a different state. We moved to Florida, and he went to school, and I was like, hey, you got to have that balance, but be your unapologetic self. Be willing to be teachable. And definitely, you don't want to be rude, but you definitely have to stand up for yourself. Stand up for yourself. You can prove your point with always being a lady. That's why I tell my daughter, always be a lady. You don't raise your voice. You can just be a lady, and we can get through it. I have my daughter skulking around. So, and then that will make sure that you are presented well. You can present your case and your argument without even batting an eye. So always be a lady.
Love it. Excellent. Thank you.
Sorry, and I'm going to jump in on one more thing because I just wanted to make an observation, and we're all doing this. What we're doing is we're actually we're allies. We're each other's allies in this meeting. That's one thing that I really speak to my female employees about, which is find someone in the room. If you're a little bit afraid to speak up, find someone in the room who can be your ally, who can be your megaphone. And that's what we're doing. We're constantly reinforcing each other's positivity, each other's ideas. One thing that's a pet peeve of mine is when I see other females dragging each other down because they're getting too competitive. Please lift each other up. We're all in it together. We're all on the same side of the table. And that goes for males too. I'm big on male allyship. So it's not always whose neck can I step on to get ahead. People will notice when you echo, when you are the one who is lifting other people up. That's a sign of a leader. So just wanted to add that.
Oh, can I tag down to that? Instead of saying there's only so many chairs at the table, bring another chair.
Nicely said. Nicely said. I love this question. Claudia, before we move on to the final question, do you want to jump in on this one?
Sure. And, I might be different than a lot of people. I personally feel like, and I've been at Verizon most of my career before that, Chubb, I've never felt that I was treated differently or discriminated or not given the same opportunities as any of the men around me. And that just might be who I was. My daughter, my father had 2 girls. There were no boys. I was raised as the boy in the family. He was in the military. There were a lot of guys around all the time. So I was very comfortable being in a man's world, comfortable with sports analogies, comfortable with the cursing that many of the men did. And so what I found for myself, I think, is that I was just comfortable in a man's world. So I didn't necessarily make the men feel uncomfortable with me being in there. I play golf, all those things. I'm not suggesting you change anything. I think I said earlier, you be you, just be you, don't change who you are. But I do think for women, there are different standards. Men don't think about, necessarily how they do their hair when they go to a meeting or go to an interview, right? They just think about what shoes and belt. Like women, can I put my braids in? Can I not put my braids in? Do I have to have curly hair or straight hair? What glasses should I wear? There's so many different little things that you have to think about. And those judgments, people really do form them very quickly. So I think, I think the advice to have allies is really important. It's so true. Be true to who you are. But also, if you plan and if you're courageous and if you're bold and if you plan for your career, you'll do well. I think a lot of it comes down to confidence. And what I see all the ladies here on the panel is everybody has a very different style, a very different approach, but they just exude confidence. They're credible, they're subject matter knowledge and experts, and they know what they do. And people want to be around confident people because they're putting a lot of trust in you when they're hiring you. That's a big economic decision. So I just encourage you to be yourself, be true to who you are, find a company that has values, do your research. You can go to Glassdoor, Comparably, all these companies, and find out how they treat people, how women are treated, how people of color are treated, how people with disabilities are treated. So do your research and find a company that aligns to the values that you have, and then you'll be much more likely to be treated the right way.
Thank you, Claudia, and thank you so much for that fantastic conversation. And Michelle, I totally agree with you. We do have to be each other's. We're all on the same team. We do have to lift each other up. Excellent thought. So we have one last question posted in the chat room, and thank you. Oh, actually, we have another one. Excellent. So two quick questions in the chat room. We'll go through these really quickly because we are going to be short of time soon. The first one deals with college. A lot of us are thinking about, a lot of our students are probably thinking about next steps. So the question in the chat room, how relevant to your work was your undergraduate major? So your undergraduate major, I know a lot of you in your introductions, you mentioned taking varied career paths. So maybe 2 or 3 people want to jump on this one. How relevant to your work was your undergraduate major?
I'll take that. For an engineering degree, it is very relevant. As do I do calculus every day? No, but the fact that I have the background in the mathematics, the background in problem solving, that's what I do every day. I solve problems. There are engineering solutions that need to be developed, and that's what I do every day. So it is very relevant. Though, do I use all the coursework? No, but it helps me understand, and it helps me to be a learner.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else want to jump on this one?
Sure. So I will say on paper, my major was completely irrelevant to what I ended up doing. I was I was an English major with a poli-sci minor, and I ended up owning an IT company. But it did give me an introduction into the legal field, which is where 80% of our client base is currently. And it introduced me to a world where I realized was very backwards in terms of technology. And then we were able to innovate and say, okay, let's open up an outsourced IT company and service all these law firms. So and someone mentioned here, going to college necessarily won't give you the exact skill set, but it'll introduce you to, it'll open your aperture, I believe you said, Claudia, right? So I love that. So it certainly opened up my eyes to the world of possibility. And just completing college actually made me very accountable. I learned how to, answer to my professors, how to deal with critical feedback and not get torn down to tears every single time I didn't succeed on the first try. So just going through the process of attaining a degree, that made me a better entrepreneur, business person, leader. So.
Thank you so much. Would anyone else like to jump on and answer this question?
If any of the students are interested in law school, I happen to be a criminal justice major with a poli-sci minor, but in hindsight, I wish I something different in college and learned a different area, because college is about becoming an accountable young adult. And so I wish I did, economics or to diversify and broaden my thought, because if your goals are to enter law school, it really doesn't matter what your major is, unless you want to go into tax law, then accounting could be appropriate. And a future employer look at that and be like, oh, that's cool. They have that underlying background in addition to a law degree. And so I would think about it in that sense also.
This is Sharon. I just wanted to tag on to that. So a part of my undergraduate experience, I actually took French. I took French in high school, and so I continued that in college, even though I was doing communications. But that afforded me the opportunity to go study in France. So I studied in France for a whole term, and it was crazy because a program that I was in, doing a French honors program in college, I was actually attending a school that was a high school in France, getting college credit, which baffled my mind, but it was an experience that I loved and adored, and I still keep in contact with my host mom, even though that was like 20 years ago. I speak broken French now, but I find ways to go speak French, like going down to Reading Terminal. I can't wait till the city opens back up, and just ordering my stinky cheese that I liked from visiting France, and the proper wines to pair with the different meals. So be open to those experiences. To your undergrad is the time where you can explore and learn new things and have so many different experiences that you would not have otherwise had the opportunity to do.
Excellent. Thank you, Sharon. So we'll move on to our final question. We have another student question posted in the chat room. We thank you, students, for your questions. We really appreciate it. And these are fantastic. We might have to steal these questions for the next time we do this. And anyone can jump in. I think, Claudia, you might be next up. So if you want to jump in first, we'll give you that opportunity. How were you able to reach leadership roles? throughout your career. So you're all very, very accomplished women in various fields, STEM, engineering, law, business, technology, entrepreneurship. How are you able to reach leadership roles throughout your career?
Well, it's a great question, and I don't think anybody will have the exact same answer. From my experience at Verizon, the only job I ever applied for was the first job that I had, and from there on, every 2 to 4 years, somebody would come to me with another opportunity and say, "I'd really like you to consider doing this job, or talking to this leader who has this opening because I think you'd be a great fit." And so I tell people all the time, don't say, "I want to be a VP someday," or "I want to be a CEO someday." Seek, work that matters and take the opportunity to do that job amazingly well. Set yourself apart by getting great results and making an impact, but by being a really, really good team member. I tell people a lot of times it's really your peers who end up holding you back and who give negative referrals later on. So don't just think about, managing up in your boss, but really think about the network that you're building around you and the people that you're helping to support, and that will become part of your board of advisors sort of later on, because it's really good to have that diverse board of people that you can trust and who will tell you the truth. And so that's what I've always done. I also was promoted fairly young in my career, so I learned very quickly that I was not the most experienced, and I certainly was not the smartest person in the room. So I think when you start with that as a premise, you really learn that if you can work with and through other people, and if you can build the biggest and best, not the biggest, but if you can build the strongest team, the most diverse team, who can challenge each other to get to the best decision, then you'll really distinguish yourself and get apart. And then the last thing was, I really never said no. When somebody asked me to take a job, another opportunity, I always said yes, no matter how terrifying it was. They asked me to move into sales comp one time, and I had no idea what I was going to be doing in that job. I had zero experience in it. I tell people felt like I had diarrhea in my shoe every day that I went to work for the first 6 months. I was so terrified that I was going to be found out for being an imposter. But I went back to school and I learned about sales comp, and I learned the basics, and I got a certification in that, and I built credibility. So what I tell everybody is be humble, be kind, work well with others, lean in, make an impact. Don't worry about the next job. Worry about doing a great job for the job that you're in, and be a good team member. And those are the things that really work for me.
Excellent, thank you. Anyone else like to jump in?
And definitely the first leadership position that I was offered was because my leaders saw in me that I was lifting the team up. I was supporting where the support was needed. And, really a leader is supposed to lift up their team. So they're going to look for people that do that within their team. Do your job well, help others do their job, and you'll be noticed.
Definitely agree with that.
Yeah, I would agree with that also. We've been, as an entrepreneur, I've been in the fortunate position of mentoring leaders, and the ones that we tap on the shoulder and say, "Hey, we have this team that needs a project manager," and then we see how they do with that, and then if they do well with that challenge, then they move up to a higher leadership position. It's always the ones that listen and focus on solutions. We have a lot, we call them the problem Colorados, the chicken littles, and sometimes, they have a great way of describing how the sky is falling, but then they don't tell you where to take shelter. So we want people who can, there's an old movie that Jack Nicholson says, "I'm drowning here," and you're describing the water. We like to know when people are drowning, but we also need to know who needs a life vest, where we're going to get it. So definitely think of solutions, be open to criticism, and be strong mentally. If you have people on your team who tend to be negative and just gossip mongers, focus their attention back on solutions. Because really that's why we need leaders, to fix things, right? To provide answers. So
I love that answer, Michelle, because for me, so my role that I'm in now, I created this role. I lobbied for it. I saw the need for it after being in supply chain so long. You're like, okay, there's a deficiency and a disconnect between the engineers I work with across the country and the supply chain department. Somebody has to mesh this. And so did the research, wrote the job description, approached the senior manager for this department. It was like, hey, you don't have nobody reporting to you. I know contracts. You know this side. You can teach me this. Let's work together. Let's create this role. So until a year ago, 2 years ago, this role didn't exist. And now we've garnered a national award for being one of America's top corporations for women-owned businesses. And that's a part of the work I did over the last 2 years. So I am very proud of that, but don't be pigeonholed into titles, right? Listen to what Michelle says. Listen to what these ladies are saying about coming up with solutions. You see a problem, you figure out a solution. If that solution creates a role for you, that's good. If that solution creates a role for someone else, that's good. Be a champion, but come up with solutions. The leaders are the ones that are influencing change. It's not always about the title. Sometimes it's about the do. If I ask you something, will you do? What is your fight or flight, right? Are you going to cave under all the pressure? Or are you going to rise to the occasion and say, okay, I'm going to brainstorm how we're going to get this done. Here are different solutions. Which one's going to be the most cost effective? Which one's going to get us to the next level? And then in tune, those solutions get you to the next level.
Fantastic. Excellent. Thank you. Any of our other panelists want to answer this question? How you were able to reach leadership roles throughout your career? All right. Well, excellent conversation from everybody. Just a quick overview of, I think the main thing that we learned today from our panelists is to be true to yourself and to be you. Some skills that they said were important, time management, communication skills, the value of building your networks, which is what we're doing here right now. Being adaptable, being flexible. And again, we're all being adaptable and flexible with our shift of remote learning and remote working. Your education continues well beyond high school or college. So always be a lifelong learner. That we've learned that from our panelists, that they've had a leadership careers and careers that always encourage them to continue learning. Keep your eyes open to the world. Don't be afraid to try new things. That's when we learn and grow, is when we get out of our comfort zone and try new things. Don't be afraid to fail. And again, those final remarks we heard, leaders are the ones that come up with solutions to problems. And of course, bring each other up. That's another fantastic thing. If there's not, I think Hans said, make another seat at the table if there's not a seat. So again, thank you to our panelists, Michelle Bajwa from Domain Computer Services, Claudia Healy from Verizon, Sharon Manker from American Water, Melissa Orson from South Jersey Industries, and Hans Schnell from Lockheed Martin. We really appreciate your participating today. And also been a moment of thanks to our presenters and to our sponsors, which make this event happen. Accenture, ADP, Allstate, AT&T, Deloitte, Goldman Sachs, Carney Bank, Lockheed Martin, New Jersey Resources, PSE&G, Realogy, Sanofi, South Jersey Industries, and Verizon. We thank you so much for your participation. Students, if you're on the line, we have a number of activities that coordinate with this program that you can do now or later. And we are scheduling a week from today, elevator pitch sharing, 2 weeks from today. 2 weeks from today, elevator pitch sharing via WebEx. So 2 weeks from today, mark your calendars. We'll remind you students, we're all going to jump on a WebEx line like this, have it open to everybody who would like to share their elevator pitch. The elevator pitch activities are going to be posted with the additional activities. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me. I'm at ctighe@ja.org. Happy to help you. But again, on behalf of all of us at JA, thank you to our program partners, and thank you to our panelists for joining us today. This was a fantastic conversation, and we just thank you all so much. Thank you, everybody.
Be safe, everybody.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.